Hello, everyone. My name is Preston Dennett, and welcome to another episode of UFOs and the Paranormal. I have something a little different for you today. I call this episode A Conversation with an Extraterrestrial Walk-In. This is an audio only interview I did with a lady who has a very interesting story to tell. I think you'll find it quite compelling and it's pertinent towards these very interesting times. So let's just get started. This interview is with a lady I call Wendy. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, Preston. How are you?
I am really good. Yeah, we tried to record there a second ago and it just didn't work, but now we're starting over. And
It
uh,
doesn't surprise me. We have a lot of really important information, and I imagine that this could be quite threatening for some people, especially those in opposition of what we stand for.
yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So you have a really interesting story about how you came into all of this. I met you at a Crystal Skull convention. We saw Max the Crystal Skull. I sat down next to you. I'm like, wow, who is this woman? I'm not super sensitive or psychic. I am a little bit now, but back
Oh,
then,
you have always been. You just didn't know it.
all right. I'll accept
Yeah,
that. But yeah, I could
yeah.
sense your aura. I mean, I seriously could. And we ended up having all these incredible adventures together. I saw you display incredible psychic powers on a number of occasions, precognition. You actually called down a UFO for me. That was the best sighting I've ever had. So yeah, I am like so jazzed that you're willing to do this today and spill
Well,
the beans.
I think it's time. I think it's very important. There's a lot going on the planet right now. We're at a huge shift in our evolution, and there's some big things that are happening. And I feel that it's very important to start to educate people so that they're not misled with the events that are about to happen. So, um, I feel our government is really getting ready to start releasing a lot of the information that they've withheld on UFOs, on ETs, on ET intelligence. I don't know how much they're going to release, but I do believe that they're going to start coming clean about some things. And my concern at the moment is why now? Why now? They've had so many opportunities to come clean, but it's always been denial, 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 cover up, don't share, don't tell, just keep them in the dark. So why now? What's your thoughts on this, Preston?
Yeah, they've been lying for 70 years. So for them to say, oh, yeah, let's tell the truth now, I feel it's kind of disingenuous. But I really feel like they've been lying from the beginning. That was a policy they adopted right off. So that's one reason. They've sort of painted themselves into a corner, so to speak. But I feel like they have no choice. I feel like there's a lot of pressure from many different sides, from the contactee community, from the research community, from especially the ETs, who have been, as far as I can tell from all the research I've done, and it's been 35 years now, the ETs themselves have been pushing disclosure. They have a strong agenda. I mean, they've been a really aggressive sort of publicity campaign of announcing their presence without actually landing on our planet. Uh,
Oh,
so
there's been plenty of landings, believe me. Believe you me. And exactly, my sentiments exactly. And why now? Well, there's a lot of fear mongering. They, you can't control people if they're confident and they feel safe and they're empowered. But if someone's in fear, they're easier to control, except for running around like a chicken with their head cut off. You can convince them that they're in danger, and that fear, in addition, shuts down the immune system. So you cannot have your immune system working properly when you're in fear. The body doesn't work that way. So you're making people frightened, you're scaring them. They don't use the correct areas of their brain when they're in fear. A lot of times we go into that ancient area, the amygdala, that runs in that ancient fear processing part of the brain. So we're not going to think as rationally as we need to. We're going to make crazy, silly choices, and we're going to have fight or flight and want to protect ourselves. So I really am concerned with the motivation. And if we're all terrified already with the C word that's running around and everybody's getting shots with toxins in them, and it look, all of it's very concerning, but I'm not going to go there at the moment. We'll keep it focused on our topic. It seems that there's not enough fear. A lot of people are waking up and seeing the truth. And they're seeing that they are not this fragile little human being. They are an extraordinary being, an intergalactic being of light in human form. And many of us understand this, many more than ever in history, really. And so a lot of people are starting to see the truth for what it is. So they haven't scared us enough. So what's the next thing to do? Well, how about an off world scare tactic? Because if what's on world isn't scary enough and it's not working, then let's create what we need and let's run our agenda in fear. And if we can convince everybody that there's an off world threat that's coming to annihilate us, well, maybe we can have much more control and they'll be willing to hand over all their control to us.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, you're fired. Sorry. So, I mean, there are a lot of us here, and it's time to wake up because we're extraordinary and we're amazing.
Yeah, well, let's
And
back
so,
up a little bit and just talk a little bit about your background, who you are, and how you came to, you know, where you are
okay,
today. I know you've had a
so
lot of UFO experiences. I've
yes,
had some with you. Uh,
yes, quite a few actually. With we've seen UFOs coming in and out of the ocean. Um, we crawled up into the rocks. We've gone, goodness, we've gone to Colorado. We've gone all over the place. We've gone up into the forest and into Angeles Forest and Arizona and you name it. We've traveled and seen some pretty extraordinary things, haven't we?
yeah, we sure have. Yeah, yeah, you have opened my eyes to a lot of
Uh,
different things.
You were a little skeptical in the beginning, and I said, "Oh, you just wait. You just wait. You have no idea what you're about to see." And yeah, you were hooked. You were hooked, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we saw that UFO, I mean, you're like, you made an appointment with the ETs. I'm like, okay, because actually, I had done an
You
interview.
sure you're going to do this? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I had done an interview with you, and you were talking about your UFO experiences. They were wild. I'm like, oh my God, you're being taken on board. There's hybrid babies, grays around your bed. You jumped up and kicked one and kicked it in the neck. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is this lady for real? And I knew you were. I mean, I talked to you face to face. I could see you were sincere. I was just trying to wrap my head around it. And I got this really strong impulse to run under the roof of my condo, which I did. I couldn't help it. And a UFO appeared and says, "Hi, we're Wendy's ETs." I mean, it literally gave me this message. And says, "You don't believe? Watch this." And starts darting around like nobody's business. And that's how I knew you were. I mean, I knew you were telling the truth because your ETs showed up and made sure that I would listen to you.
Well, look, let me just clarify something too, because it's really important. Um, there's you talked about jumping up and kicking them, and yes, I did. I killed one and I snapped its neck, and um, I feel really bad about that. It was a terrifying experience. Now, what you have to understand is there is a thing that is universal law. And there are karmic laws, and those laws cannot be broken. And you have to be one of those people in victim mentality. And um, there are certain things that they can and cannot do. However, this particular group of beings, I was not fully conscious at this time of what was happening, and that there was a lot of off-world interaction with me, and I'd have to go into the history of the beings too to get you to understand a little more, which is something we can do. But anyway, I only had bits and pieces of the things that were happening through these encounters. And I realized that I was being visited. And I think I even told you I was so ready to catch them because I couldn't catch them. So that I would booby trap my house. And I would do things like hang bags of flowers. So if they would fall on them and there would be footprints, or I would wire up cameras and tin cans and water that would fall on top and make noise. And I was determined to catch these little guys. I really didn't understand what was happening. I was waking up with strange marks on me. I was missing time. I had very strange experiences. Um, Appliances would go really strange with me. Things, electronics would go very strange with me. So it was a very scary time because I only remembered some pretty horrible things. And when you feel that you are in danger and you don't understand, and I'll give you the analogy. Imagine if you went to the dentist and you have cavities, you have an infection, and the dentist is going to fix those. But all you remember is seeing this strange light come down. And then all you remember is maybe the needle going in or hearing the drill. That would be terrifying, would it not?
Oh, yeah. I don't like going to the
Yeah.
dentist, but I know it's good for me.
Right. So imagine if you only have little bits and pieces of memory. So the whole thing would be discombobulated and it would be very scary. So my memories were starting to surface very slowly. For whatever reason, my memories were blocked. At that time, I didn't fully understand why. So, but they were starting to bubble up and make their way to the surface. And when I realized something was going on and there was some influence that I couldn't control and I was being visited and taken, I was terrified. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I looked, and there they were. And I thought, well, no wonder I can't catch them. They just come straight through the walls. How the hell did they do that? They came straight through the walls. And I was so terrified, I jumped up, I started kicking, I started freaking out, and I grabbed one and I snapped its neck, and down it went. And I thought, wow, well, that was really easy. Now, I was in my animal brain, I was in absolute fear and terror. Had I calmed down and thought to talk, maybe things would have gone differently. Now, the interesting thing that happened next was they had this little device, like a pen, like a pen light, and they hit me with it. And when that light hit me, I went into this very kind of semi conscious quasi state. And I understood. At that point, all of my fear was gone. And they took me straight through the wall. Nobody had their hands on me, but I just, there I went through the wall. Now, I don't know why I thought to do this. I don't know what brought me to this thinking, but it was the turning point because things like this had been happening for years. And so all of a sudden, I woke up. Right as they were taking me through the wall, I woke up. I became conscious, and still the fear was gone. And so this part of me shot up out of my body into this awareness, the highest aspect of myself, straight up, straight through the roof, straight to some, I don't know where I was, some dimension much higher than this. And I connected with that, anchored with that, and brought it straight down into that physical body. And I sat up, and they were all mortified. They looked at me like, oh my goodness, how is she conscious? And I looked at them, and I said to them, I'm not frightened. I'm not angry with you. I'm not scared of you. I'm not happy with you. I am speaking to you from all of myself, from my whole self, from the highest aspect of myself, and I do not give you permission at this time to take me. I will work with you, but not now. And because I am conscious and I am speaking to you from the highest aspect of myself, you must put me back. You do not have permission. And bang, bang, I was right back in my room. And from that moment on, everything changed. The encounters changed. The information exchange changed. Everything changed. But for years, it was about fear. It was about, because I only had very limited access to my memories. And that was very fearful.
All right. So was
So,
this around the time that you started to really wake up to who you are? I mean, like in
right,
terms of being a walk-in.
right. So I agreed. I came to the planet at this time. The There was an exchange. When we are born, we come onto this planet and we have an idea of how long we want to be here because we have a goal or a mission. And then that soul can die, depending on how they die, disease, accident, you name it, whatever. Um, the exit is different, but the soul is done and it leaves. And so there's an opportunity to step into that body. And so the oversoul, or the group consciousness, and I think I said this to you before, think of it like a bag of marbles, beautiful marbles in a bag. And the consciousness is all of those different marbles in that bag. And so there's a white marble that's in the body. And at a certain point, the body got everything that it needed in that life, in that physical incarnation, and it's ready to check out and move on to a new experience. And at that point, another aspect of that soul, that energy or information, can step in and carry on. And sometimes the personalities merge, sometimes the information is able to cross and share. But in my state, um, I was actually in a physical incarnation as what you call an ET. And that body was put into a cryogenic state to release the soul from the body so that that soul essence could actually come down and make a physical exchange as a walk-in energetic soul expression in a three-dimensional human form. So if you understand that.
All right. So just so I'm clear, what you're saying is you have memories of being another person on another planet in another body and made a decision, had the technology to do it, to put yourself into a cryogenic state, which allowed you to release that body and come here to Earth
Release the
and,
soul,
or yeah,
not the
release
body.
the soul, sorry, and allowed you to come to Earth and inhabit the body, which had just been vacated by the person who had learned all the lessons they could learn in that body at that time. So you could come here to do the work that needs to be done.
Correct. And there are many of us. And the reason is, yes, ETs could just land and walk around on your planet and scare the hell out of people. Um, or shock people, but that's not part of the mission. So, being a human, being in a human body and carrying human energy is very special, and it's very important. And there's a connection, a beautiful harmonic connection to the earth grids, the earth energy, the earth experience, the earth's heart. And so the best way to assist the planet and her children is to do it through human form, or an animal, obviously, but as humans. And so to not interfere and to have the limited human perspective that we all have, the easiest thing to do and the most effective thing to do is to take an evolved extraterrestrial being and allow them entrance into that physical form to be of assistance here and to help using those much higher energies and vibrations and frequencies in this physical body to be of service.
Wow. Wow. So you have actual memories of being somebody else, and
Yes.
it's amazing.
I have all of it. I remember the moment it happened. I remember saying goodbye to my family, my husband, my children. I remember all of it. And I knew I was needed here. And I knew it was important to do. And no one knew how long it would take. So it just depended. But I wanted to be here. I wanted to assist. There are relatives, I guess how you would say it. There are energy beings that are here that have been recycled over and over and trapped, and they haven't been able to ascend to higher dimensions because of this thick, dense carpet of lower vibration that has trapped souls at this three-dimensional incarnation, so that it's just repeating and repeating, and they've lost the connection to their higher aspects of who they are as that intergalactic being of light.
Right.
We are extraordinary, beautiful intergalactic beings of light in human form. And when you stay here long enough and you stay in this thick, dense soup of energy, it's easy to forget who you are.
Yeah. Well,
And
like you
that's
said, the government or our fantastic enemy, as you called them. I loved that.
yes.
Has worked really hard to dumb us down, pump us full of drugs, poisons, toxins, get us fear based, and
Yep. Yep. Thank you, you jackasses. Thank you. Gosh, have you done us a service? Because coal gets pressed really hard, and a lot of pressure creates a beautiful diamond. So thank you, you evil bastards. Thank you. You are fantastic villains. You're excellent enemies. You have helped us beyond measure. And now we don't need it so much anymore. We understand. Many of us are remembering who we are. And myself, coming from higher dimensions, still in a physical incarnation, I didn't step in as a disincarnate energy. I didn't step in as a soul that didn't have a body. I actually stepped in from a physical incarnation, just not physical like yours. My energy was vibrating at a much, much faster rate. And so, with those oscillations, with that vibration, it puts you in a less dense state. So, it was much less physical, higher dimensional. Not saying smarter, just um, older, longer living through incarnations, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. I see exactly what you're saying. It's incredible. Um,
And so there are many of us here because, in order to follow certain protocols, the best way to be of service to humanity was to have a human form. So in essence, I'm human, and that comes with certain limitations. However, I still have access to very important information from the ET life that I put on hold while I'm here.
Wow. All right, so let's get to what's happening now in today's world with all the chaos, the government coming forward, and now they say they're going to tell the truth. After
Right.
75 years of lying, now they're going to come
And
forward.
why? Yeah, right. So why? So why are they going to do that? Well, I think you and I might feel the same way, that there's not enough fear, there's not enough panic, there's not enough crazy energy on the planet. Let's create a little more. And there is this concept of a one world order. We're all humans. Let's band together. We don't know how to manage each other. We don't know how to manage ourselves. We need psychopathic lunatics monitoring us and dominating us. Wrong. You're all fired. Get a clue. We don't need that. But we're waking up to the fact that we don't need that. So many people see it. So what's the next tactic? What's the next scare tactic? Invasion. I I don't know this for a fact, but I can only assume that that's going to be the agenda. These are horrible beings. These are terrible beings. Really? Well, then why did so many of us come here to help? Why did so many of us come here to remind all of us that we are beautiful beyond measure? We are extraordinary. We are magnificent beings, energetic beings of light. We are not small. We are not limited to a tiny little protein machine. We are not little tiny protein machines. We are extraordinary beings of light in human form. And now, in science, most of our physicists even know this. We're highly condensed particles of energy vibrating in a field of energy that affects everything. We are not predisposed to our genes like we've been told. We have a thing called epigenetics, which environmental factors influence the way that genes express. And we have direct access to our higher aspect, which is a full being of light that can heal. And we have to remember who we are. We have that ability, and we can activate it now. And now we are being called to do it. We are being called to wake up and switch on now.
Yeah, this
No
feels to
more
me
sitting passively.
this feels to me like one of the main ET agendas is to wake us up. We were
Wake up.
yeah, we were I mean we
Yeah,
feel like life here on earth is the only thing. But we didn't start here. We're not going to end here. We're immortal beings. We are part of this universe. You can't divide us away from the universe. And if that's true, and I don't see any way that it couldn't be, I mean, we are part of this universe. That means we have all the power of the universe within us.
absolutely. And we've been so dumbed down and so put into fear states, and had our immune system so compromised and challenged and attacked, that we don't remember the vastness of who we are, our connection to the higher universe, and where we come from. And when we connect to each other, and we're not muzzled and mugged and gagged and poisoned. And it doesn't matter even if we are, because we have the ability to transmute every bit of it. It is laughable. It's like, are you kidding me? You absolute psychopathic morons. That's why, okay, so your costume is very scary. Yes, it's scary, but it isn't real, because we are immortal, like you said. And those beings, our elder brothers and sisters, are all hanging out up there. And those of us that decided to step in to play a role on the planet at this time to remind everyone you are extraordinary. You have power beyond your wildest imagination. You are one of the most beautiful beings created in the universe. And all you have to do is remember, light up, and shine. You are a walking, talking, living vortex of light. You think Stonehenge is interesting? Well, switch on because your vortex is even bigger. And when we all lock in together and we connect to the earth grids, magic happens. And we're shifting. And it is time. What we have in store for us is extraordinary. It is beautiful. No more horrible torture and fear and mutilation. And, I guess we're going to have to talk about some of the different beings and that, the potential to be scared. Because obviously, when you talk about individuals, like let's talk about the human race, no, not everyone is good. There's some pretty nasty individuals on the planet,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
Oh yeah.
Some of them have public office. So, there's some pretty ugly things, ugly humans. So you can't say that every being in any species is good or bad. It depends on their consciousness and the level of evolution that they have. But those individuals that could care less about us wouldn't be here to assist us anyway. They just wouldn't be around. Are there individuals that would seek to exploit us? Well, absolutely. And even that has to follow certain karmic rules, karmic law. So if you're a victim and you walk around embodied in an energy field that just signals kick me, like with one of those signs on your back, kick me, slap me, you have opened the door to a host of different um, interactions from humans, from animals, from um, other beings. Absolutely. Elementals, you name it. Other energies, um, three dimensional and onward. Because if you send a frequency and you send a message and that you match with other frequencies, that then allows a certain level of agreement, so to speak, whether you're conscious of it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Like attracts like. I think is a
Right.
good way of putting it. The secret, so to speak. How to manifest. I've watched you manifest stuff, so I know you know what you're talking about. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear on this planet. There's a lot of fear surrounding the whole UFO phenomena, grays in particular. I've studied
Okay, let's
this
talk about
subject
them.
for years, and I don't
Yeah.
think the grays are here to torture us or hurt us or anything like
Well, when you
that.
say gray, there are a lot of beings that have gray skin. It doesn't mean that that's the species. So there are a number of different species that have gray, off gray, slightly white, blue, blue gray. There's a number of different species, and there are variations to different beings, just as there are variations of skin tone and ethnicity here on the planet. So you get that's like saying all the Chinese are evil. All Chinese, they're rotten, they're evil. Because a few bad Chinese have done some pretty crappy things of late. You can't say that. They're not all evil. There's some beautiful, beautiful Chinese beings.
I would
We
say
know that.
most. Yeah, most people I think on this planet are good people.
Most. And that depends on how connected you are to your soul essence. Let's face it. When you are connected to source energy, you move through life in a very different way than when you are disconnected, because then you feel separate, you feel isolated, you feel fear, you feel limitation, you are scared, you don't feel supported in the world. So you are out for you. I call that me-itis. I have me-itis. I'm out for me. When you are connected, you understand that you are a beautiful part of a whole. and that you're not alone, and that everything that you do and say affects the whole. So that's important to understand. And so these beings that we call the grays, there's a number of them. Let's talk about the zeta at the moment, because I'm very familiar with this group of beings, and I've had a lot of experiences with them. And initially in the beginning, there was a lot of fear because, again, I didn't have all of my memories. I know I had agreed to work with these beings. I know I had agreed to offer them genetic information, and I was helping them. Now, there's a reason behind that, and there's a history. And so their history goes back to a time not so different to what's going on right now. And they had become very, very advanced technologically. And yet, consciously, there was a lack. They weren't as evolved consciously, heart based, centered. Yes, there were some that were, but the majority of the individuals in charge were very interested in stuff. Who had the bigger buildings? Who could build more fancy cities, infrastructure, bombs, energy, information, technology. Technology without consciousness is very dangerous. And we know this because we've seen a number of civilizations fall because of this. When you embed yourself in ego, and when in any physical experience, ego is there to help us move through a physical incarnation. And at some point, you have to learn that it was only there as a protective mechanism to get you through and to keep you a little bit dulled so that you would follow through in the whole experience. Because when you remember that none of it's real, you just go, I've had enough, I'm out of here. So it helps us learn. And we came here to learn, all of us. Even those of us that came in as ETs, as walk-ins, we're still growing. We haven't evolved and finished. We're all growing. We're all learning. And if you ever meet an individual that tells you they've arrived, that they're done, you might want to run the other way. Because when you're in a physical incarnation, there's always something else to learn. And when you're sitting in pure energy in the seat of God and soul, and you decide to come out and express in physicality at some dimensional level, then you always have something to learn and share. And if you have reached a level of evolution and consciousness, then you want to share with those individuals that want to grow as well. So pretending that you're some kind of amazing God just because you have technology, you have to think about, well, what's their motive? Maybe they're not in my highest and best good. So most beings that are there in your highest and best good will not try to present themselves as gods. Just a little hint there. So just a good thing to know. And they can really be impressive because the technology that has evolved in higher beings is extraordinary. I mean, we can create with our minds very quickly. And it's, from a third dimensional perspective, it looks pretty impressive. But you also have animals on this planet like dolphins and whales that can. So you have extraordinary beings here. And they're also in jeopardy of what's going on right now on this planet with poisons and toxins and, manipulation. So those beings need our help as well at the moment. So I digress. Let's go back to the Zeta. So they've reached a certain level of technology, and yet not enough spiritual connection, consciousness. And then you start with the big egos and the warring and the I'm better than you and I'm greater than you and my religion's better than yours and we're doing it right and you're not, and wars. And with the kind of technology that the Zetas had and the lack of consciousness, they annihilated their planet. It was like a full-blown nuclear holocaust. When I say nuclear, it was much more damaging than what we have now. And they basically destroyed themselves. And there were underground bases that had been built, much like what our governments and elites have done now. There are a lot of underground bases and civilizations, and if that gets to this point on the planet, then we're all um, disposable. Well, I got news for you, psychopathic morons. We've been there, done that. We know about it, and we're ready. Nothing's going to be destroyed because it's already happened. Been there, done that. We're here, waking up, and we're going to get it right. So they retreated underground. And it was interesting because they showed me what happened as though I was one of them experiencing it with them. And so it was like being in a cave in the darkness. And they had some inkling that things could go terribly wrong. And if things did go terribly wrong, they had built these areas within the planet. I say Earth, it's not Earth. So within the planet that could sustain life for a certain amount of time. And because of all of this, the radiation that had happened, and because of all of the fallout, the death toll was extraordinary. And so imagine if that happened on the planet, and some of us were able to get underground, and you're thinking, my goodness, did my family make it? Where's my brother, my sister, my mother? You think about who may have lost their lives. Are they topside? What happened? Can I help them? I can't get to them. I mean, imagine all the things that would be going through your mind if we destroyed the earth. So this is where they were. And there was a large group of them, and there were scientists, and there were all different kinds of um, occupational lifestyles, so to speak, all different kinds of beings. And sitting there, they decided that they had become so egomaniacal and so horrible that they could never, ever let their egos destroy what they destroyed. They thought, how did we let it come to this? How could we have sat back, we watched this, and we allowed this to happen? We can never let this happen again, ever. So what they wanted to do was they thought, okay, let's get rid of negative emotions. And so they wanted to remove a gland that would remove negative emotions. And so some of the individuals said, we can't do that. If you remove this, you remove all emotion. And they said, well, look, the benefits will far outweigh the risks. We destroyed ourselves. We destroyed our planet. We destroyed each other. We have no option. And to make things even more, they wanted to connect each other to such a degree that they would never hurt or harm each other again, and they could feel as though they were a collective. And so there were some individuals that said, well, we can't stand by and watch you do this. Because if you do this, you're going to mutate yourselves to such a degree that you will never be the same. You won't feel emotion. You won't feel compassion. You won't feel love. You won't feel certain things. Yes, you may not feel hate. You may not feel anger. You may not feel certain things, but you won't feel things that we need to feel in order to connect to our higher aspects and know who we are. And so they split. So they had an issue with taking these radical choices, and they split. And they certain individuals picked up and off they went. So that is why some people experience what they call grays, being very cold, emotionless, not showing any kind of caring or empathy. There are some of those characteristics that were bred out of them because they didn't ever want to harm themselves or destroy themselves or work out of ego and fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and I've talked to people who've told this story, and various variations. I mean, one lady said, was told exactly the same thing. They said, we destroyed ourselves. You need to stop the greed and corruption that you are putting out on this planet, or you are going to do what we did. So, yeah, I have heard this before.
Now the other beings that separated and went off, they said, "Well, we can't watch you do this," and they had built areas through internally in the planet, and off they went and they carried on and evolved in a different way. Now, because of all of the um, toxicality that had happened after this devastating experience, it basically caused they weren't able to reproduce. So they started cloning themselves. And you can only clone yourself for so long, and then you start to see neural degeneration. So they did this for many, many, many eons. A lot of the cloning themselves, because only not as many survived that needed to survive. And again, they had to rebuild. They had to start to rebuild so that they could travel, and they got themselves to a certain point, and they found out about life on our planet, and they thought, wow, well, there's some genetics that's very similar to ours. We can start to rebuild our species. And in doing so, we can also give the very best of ourselves to the people that we work with. And one of the things that I was told was that they would give you a jump start on your spiritual evolution. You could choose to agree to work with them. You could choose not to. Some people don't realize that they made a soul agreement, and they're in complete fear. Their soul agreed, their soul chose to embody, and their soul chose to interact with these beings. So some people don't remember. So there's a lot of fear base there. And if you've got some karmic ties, if you've even lived a life as one of those beings and you've done some pretty crappy things, you may be here karmically beholding and offer up certain genetic information, or even go through certain experiences that are not very pleasant, because those are soul contracts. So there's a number of things going on here.
All right. Yeah, that makes total sense. So, and I've heard this many times, how they have bred out emotions and how they have lost the ability to reproduce. This is a theme I hear over and over again from people who are having contact with various grays. And yeah, I do agree there's different types because some are very loving, very loving.
Very loving, very funny. I've tried to use a lot of wit on them at times. Some of them it's lost, and some of them think I'm really very funny. And when I was scared and not fully conscious of who I was, because in a physical body and in the dense vibration, you don't have access to everything. You have to really work to open your energy centers and connect. So in physical form, you're much less limited. And that's another theme for ET energy that's running through physical body. You have a lot of wire shortings, you have a lot of frying of electrical through the body. It gets very sophisticated and very complicated, and we can talk about that at another time if you'd like. I guess it's best to say, trying to run a higher level of circuitry through outdated wiring.
All right. Yeah, that makes
Like
sense.
old house that has old wiring, and you're going to send through new information, and it's going to fry out those cables. It's going to fry out the wiring and even cause fires.
Yeah, as far as them giving a spiritual jump in evolution, I've heard this many times. This is something I see with contactees. They're extraordinarily psychically aware. And one lady,
Healing, it's incredible healing abilities.
yep, yep. One lady was told flat out by the Greys that she was in contact with. They said, We have given you this ability in exchange for what you have given us. So it's basically exactly what you're saying.
Yes. And the children, I've spent a lot of time around the hybrid children, and I've met the children, and they are absolutely extraordinary. Extraordinary. And I was told by one of them that they tell us about you. They teach us about you. They teach us about our parents, our true parents, the donors of the genetic material that brought us into existence. And we know about you. And we thank you. And we love you. They tell us about you. So
Wow.
they do know. And it's interesting because when you look them in the eyes and you feel the love and you feel the compassion, there is no way when you're heart centered and you go into your heart and you experience this dynamic from a heart space, you know that that cannot be wrong. There's too much love.
So that's basically why they're here, is not only to, reinvigorate the race, but to help us, to prevent us from doing what they did.
It's interesting because I asked them point blank why, and they said, in healing our past, we heal your future.
Oh, wow.
So are they us at some later point in history? Come back? Time traveling? Are they just a species that's screwed up like us? I'm not sure. Because sometimes they speak in riddles and they don't give you all the answers. But they said, in healing our past, we heal your future.
That's really beautiful and profound. It's amazing.
And scary. It's a little unnerving.
So, but
So, yeah, they are looking to heal their own species and in the process help us heal ours.
and
Do
that
all of them want to help? I don't think so. I do believe that there are individuals that, of course, do not have our best interest at heart. But I don't think that is the majority.
no, I mean, if they wanted to take over, I mean, we would already be taken over.
Right, right. Or are we? I don't know. Maybe we already have been, and it's time to snap out of it and wake up. But I can say if they wanted to annihilate us, we'd be gone.
Exactly.
They easily have the technology.
So, from your perspective, having come from, you know, an ET world, uh, you have a mission here on this planet, and this is why you came here. So, this is a really special time for humanity. And
Correct. It is.
all right,
And there are many, many like myself. I mean, I went to great lengths to be here. I went to great sacrifice to be here. I left people that I love very much to be here. And it's important to be here. And there are millions that are of service on this planet to be here right now. Some were born in, knew exactly, star seeded, star children, and technically we all are. But there are those that consciously left physical incarnations in a physical life to step in to a human body to help at this time. It is an enormous, incredible opportunity for growth, for evolution, for spiritual evolution, and we're about to enter the galactic age as humans. It's very exciting. But we have the opportunity to travel on a three-dimensional timeline or those higher, 5D, 6D. I don't know about you. I don't want to remain on the 3D trajectory any longer. It's sticky, it's ugly, it's icky, and I've had about enough of it. And when you're blinded, so to speak, when you have limited perception to higher dimensions, because that's part of this whole physical experience, and it takes great work to wake up, the dormant areas of the brain and the energy centers and the liquid crystals in the body to start to really funnel and channel and beam those higher frequencies. And that's why a lot of people can't handle it and start to get very unwell and very sick. It's time that we all start to heal, to run these new frequencies and shift out of 3D and up. They're overlapping at the moment, and you kind of bleed in and out of them. You waver. Sometimes you see people that are on the 3D timeline, and sometimes you see people that are on the 5D, 6D timeline. It's very complicated.
Yeah, it's very interesting too. So we're at a point in our planet where, I mean, the ETs seem very concerned that we're on the verge of destruction.
They are, yes, but we've done this. So if you think about time, time is relative, right? So if you can step above 3D into 4D and above 4D, 4D is time. So that's your linear time. When you go past that, then time no longer exists. So you can drop in at any point in what we call the timeline. So it's already happened. But now we have an opportunity to get it right. So let's shift it. Let's wake up. Let's remember who we are. Let's stop being small and little and allowing people to muzzle us and tell us that we're less than. Tell us that we're not a healing mechanism of the greatest kind. We are. We are a self-healing biological entity and an intergalactic being of light in human form. We are extraordinary.
All right.
We
So
have,
this seems to be
and
your main message as an embodied extraterrestrial, is to help. Your mission is to wake people up and let us know that we're okay, that we're good, that we're powerful, that we can overcome what is happening on our planet. This
right.
incredible negative
It's
energies.
time. It's time, and not go into fear. Don't believe all the narratives. Don't believe if it's a negative agenda being bombarded at you. I beg you to take a moment, take a breath, and imagine a better opportunity. Imagine a better outcome, because that's what we're able to do. We're light beings. We don't have to be subject to the experience that we're immersed in right now. We can change that. We are all master creators, and we can create that. And as soon as we step into our roles as these higher beings, we're going to start to see the other ETs coming through. We're going to, and some of the things that we're going to see are ours. They're our government. They're not ETs. And don't be fooled. If you see ETs attacking the planet, chances are it's not ETs. They're ours. Just like the World Trade Centers that went down. Come on. We all know the truth about all this now. We know. We're being attacked from the inside. We're bigger than this. We're wiser than this. We're older than this. We're better than this. And so I embodied on this planet to remind everyone we are not limited, fragile, tiny, physical, little protein machines. We're light beings.
All right. We're not meat puppets.
No, exactly. And we don't have to take anything lying down and be convinced that we're small and don't have a choice. And we certainly don't want to be lied to. We've been lied to about everything else. We don't want to be lied to about the agenda of higher dimensional beings that actually do care very deeply for what happens to us.
Right. So I think that's exactly what this upcoming disclosure is going to be. They're been forced into disclosing the ET presence. They have no choice. If they don't, they will lose all control over the subject. People will no longer believe them. People will no longer look to them for guidance. They want to
I
remain
think
in
that's already
control.
happened.
They want their jobs. So they're going to call the ETs a threat. And they're not. They're here to
Right,
help us.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So if that's what happens, do not believe the lie. Do not believe the lie. And there are many like me that are going to step up and start talking. I've always stayed in the background and I've always worked very cautiously and carefully, drawing very little attention to myself because that's part of my mission. And now I'm going to take a more active role because we need to know that we're supported and we have people in place that crossed the universe to be here for us. We're
Wow.
not alone.
So, what can people do? What advice would you give them to help sort of wake up, to remember, to.
For one, it's really important to start to detox, to have a beautiful, healthy diet. Water is a biocomputer. Water has very important information and energy in it. Clean water. Water will help the cells. The pineal gland has been poisoned. That is your direct link to your higher soul. That is what you call the third eye and the intelligence that goes to your consciousness. You want that energy flowing back and forth. You want that information coming into the physical body and out. You want that as a feedback loop, sending and receiving energy. You want to start to really nourish the body, detox the body. It's not always fun, it's not always pleasant. You're going to be running much higher energy through a physical body that wasn't initially wired properly because that's why it's been poisoned. So you get things like fibromyalgia, um, MS, a host of different neurological disorders. We've been just loaded with toxins, and one of the biggest ones is damage to that pineal gland. And that pineal gland is sitting in the brain in a area of fluid, and that fluid is information that's going to nourish that pineal gland. It can be electrically charged. We're also body electric. We are all frequencies, energy, frequency, and vibration. This is the way of the future. This is what has to happen. We're not going to be mutilated as much, through the medical fields. That's barbaric and outdated. We have new technologies coming in that's been withheld from us. It's coming. But we have to shift. All of us collectively, consciously have to remember who we are, where we came from, and that we are bigger than what we believe and what we've been told that we are. We are bigger. And we can continue this. We can jump in and take questions at some point. I'd love to carry on with you. I'm not prepared to reveal my identity at this time because I've been, um, taken before and put onto military bases. And at this point, I'm feeling pretty comfortable in my very quiet life. So, uh, I don't have the desire to really come out yet.
Yeah, yeah. I know you've had some problems with the government, stealing your materials, monitoring you. Um, yeah. There's.
Yes, yes, you helped me a bit with some of that. So, um, and I was brought in front of different individuals, and even with ET beings that were working with these individuals. And I actually don't even believe that, they're evil. They're just misguided and not fully connected to their higher presence. And when you know who you are, you can't be destroyed. I mean, your physical body might be damaged, but we don't die. So, and we have to be here now, be present and be here for what's happening. And I know that I could see right through when they were projecting a physical image, and yet I could see the ET underneath the physical image, and I would tell them. And I thought it was funny. I probably shouldn't have provoked them the way that I did, but I thought it was funny. like that's not a very good costume. I can see right through it. You know, I can see right underneath that.
So do you think it's possible the ETs will show themselves in, to all humanity in kind of a overt way?
I think if we start to say we're ready and open up to that, my concern is what the potential opposition might do to convince people that that is the ET presence. That's my concern at the moment. And I think anyone in this field that understands the agendas the way they've been played out through history would agree with me.
Yeah, yeah, we're at a very, very interesting time. So,
So, we need to put the other message out, and I think Preston, you know that. I mean, you would have been annihilated already with everything that you've encountered and all the individuals that you work with.
um, yeah, I know the ETs know about me. I've gotten proof of this. I mean, yours came in to me twice. I've had other people's ETs show up in some capacity. I mean, one guy from England, he's having encounters. He's doing a podcast, and he told me flat out the ETs told me to call Preston Dennett. Contact Preston. I'm like, what? Are you kidding? So, yeah, they're very, very aware of what's going on. And I think with all individuals who are anyway involved with this field.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think that they're going to come out with this fear, fear, fear like I do? I mean, do you believe that?
I think the government or the bad guys are that's their agenda. But no, I don't have any good evidence that the ETs themselves are trying to hurt people or scare people. I have no accounts of what I would call sadism. When people are taken on board, the first thing the ETs say is, "Don't be afraid. We won't hurt you." I mean that's their big message. They're trying to wake people up. I think one of their main agendas is to heal people. This is what I'm seeing. They're taking people to the engine room, told how the craft work. They take them to the control room, tell them how to fly the craft. They give them all kinds of spiritual information. So I'm very encouraged about the ETs. I think they're great news for us.
What would you say to people that say, well, that's not my experience? My experience was horrific, really bad, and very dark and negative. What would you say to one of those people?
I would say I'm very sorry that you had a negative experience and what happened to you and why do you feel this way. And because I do know people who have had negative experiences. Uh, they've had painful examinations. And I have to tell you, that's the worst I hear, is people being physically examined and they have a very strong fear response, and that's all they remember. So I encourage people not to have a strong fear response, to reach out and see if there is any positive aspect to this. Has this experience resulted in anything good for you? Is there any silver lining at all? And most people will tell me, yes, there is. They've had a huge psychic awakening. And many people, once they move past this sort of fear barrier, they're like you did, you described perfectly, it's a 180-degree turn. They wake up to a
Right, but
whole new world.
yes, yes. And that's what I would say to the person having a negative experience. Are you in control? Have you stopped for a minute? Stopped, just connected with that higher aspect of yourself, and then consciously open a dialogue, because that's really important. And when you're in fear, that puts out an energy, and these are very energetic beings. So that sporadic, chaotic, fearful energy, they're not invincible. I mean, I accidentally killed one, so they can be hurt. I don't even know if I should be saying that out loud, because it's I you know I don't think we should hurt them. They have helped me tremendously, and I think that they've monitored and looked after me and looked after different aspects of my health and physical being, as well as studied the the um, the body as well, the biological container. Because maybe we're going to be so screwed up after this age of um, biological weaponry, experimental biological agents that everybody's getting now, that we're going to need a lot of help. And that's one thing about these rectal exams, these anal probes. Um, because the first time that happened to me, um, I always meet fear with a little bit of humor. And I just said, guys, I don't know what you think you're going to find in there, but I have never found anything good in there. Nothing. You won't find gold. You won't find jewels. You will find nothing lovely in there. That is the exit, not the entrance. And they did think I was a little funny. And I said, could you please explain to me what you're looking for? Because I've never found anything of value there. And they said, well, think about it like your geologist taking a core sample. We're looking at the toxic, um, the toxicology, not toxicology, I'm sorry, the toxic residue in your body. We're looking at how the environment is affecting you, what's making its way out, what toxins are in this waste, what other nutrients is your body absorbing or not absorbing, what is the microbe community in your body. They said we're looking at a number of different things, and it's the best way we can explain it is when your geologists take core samples of ice or rock or different things, and even your scientists that do animal studies, but they kind of steer away from that because they don't want you to feel like you're just an animal being studied, but maybe in a way kind of you are. So, and I don't want to disempower anybody because it's much more important than that,
Yeah. Well,
at
you've had
least
healing
with
experiences
these
as
things.
well. I mean,
Sorry?
you've had healing experiences. You described how you had a cyst that was removed. You had a car
Yes.
accident, and they healed you from that.
Yes.
So yeah, they're all about
Yes.
healing.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so, yes. And then, of course, we took out the implant, which you saw as well, which was an extraordinary little bit of technology that went missing, but vanished.
Yep, yep. Unfortunately, yep.
Yeah. So, but I also think that was to keep me safe and protected because there were some other things going on. And I feel that was important. So I don't feel ever having been exploited in any way. um, I feel that I would absolutely step up and help these individuals. I would help them in any way possible, um, and in turn, I've gotten a lot of information. I've been given a lot of gifts. I've been able to participate in things that people only dream of. People would love to be able to participate in. Again, I come at it from a different perspective because I'm not just this human biological entity. I'm also a merge from a Pleiadian experience as well.
Wow. Well, this has been an extraordinary conversation, and I think people will be very interested to hear what you had to say. And I'm sure it's going to raise a lot of questions. We're definitely going to have to do this again. But is there anything else you want to add that we haven't talked about? We've been talking for just over an hour and 15 minutes, and we've covered
Well,
quite a bit
that's
of ground.
probably enough. That's probably enough. It's a good place to start, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. An awesome place to start. It's really amazing.
Well, I'm just really grateful to have experienced what I have, and especially over the years with you. And I am so grateful to you with what you do and how much you educate, and you continually be of service and help others that are experiencing these things. I think the biggest thing in closing is that fear is debilitating, And fear doesn't allow us to think clearly and tap into our higher energies and also keep our immune systems healthy. Fear is a debilitator. And chances are, if you're in fear, you can turn it around very quickly. If you take a breath, you drop into your heart, and you focus on a loving frequency, a loving vibration. And quickly, I'll just say that was one of the very first things that the beings told me when I was having some of these um, visitations and abduction experiences. You will always know if it is in your best interest or not. And it's very difficult when you're afraid to stop the experience. But if you can focus your attention for a moment on something that you love, and if you, whether that be a child, um, an animal, a pillow, a perfume, whatever it is, focus your attention on something that you love and stay in that loving vibration, and you beam that loving vibration at the entity instead of being angry or afraid. If they are a lesser vibration, it is so uncomfortable for them, they want nothing to do with you and they will just move on.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, this is awesome
Yeah,
information.
yeah. So fear is your enemy. Fear's not going to help you. Being empowered, being in a loving space, remembering who you are, remembering that there are many of us on this planet right now that have traveled great distances to be here, to be with you, to be of service, and to usher this planet into a new age. You are not alone.
Yay. This is great. I love this. This was an awesome conversation. I think people really need to hear this, especially at this time. And I'm so happy that, yeah, we did this. And I can't wait to do it again and bring some more people in so they can ask questions. And yeah, we'll have some real fun.
I think that's a great idea. It's lovely to be here with you. I'm thrilled. I love you dearly, and I look forward to another conversation with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. This was great. We'll have to do it again for sure.
Bye, bye, Presto the Magnifico.
Bye. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. That's it for now. I will be talking to Wendy again. She's open to answering any questions anyone might have. So I hope you've enjoyed this unique episode, and until next time, keep having fun.